Hello and welcome again to the Theories of Everything program. I'm David Tao. Viewers, with this program we begin a new series, a big picture series, Theories of Self. It's extremely big picture because the notions that we'll be investigating over this program and the next several encompass most of the major core concepts that philosophers have endeavoured to solve over the millennia. Since before the time of the Greeks, probably since in fact early humans roamed the earth 100,000 years ago, because they had the same cognitive abilities as we do today. So they must have wondered to some extent about themselves, because this is about an individual. This is about you, it's about me, it's about everyone on this planet. The notion of self is central, but it's something that is so central, so ubiquitous, that we tend to largely ignore it. We accept it. We accept the way it is, and that's all we can do, primarily. Because it is the thing that structures our lives, that progresses our lives. However, new knowledge, new theories have come to light mainly in the last 5-10 years, but also particularly in the last few years. And particularly since new techniques of understanding the brain and its metaphysical counterpart, the mind, have become available. These techniques focus around magnetic resonance imaging, imaging the blood flows in the brain to determine what functions are being used as we go about daily tasks or specific processes such as meditation, introspection, or just simple things like walking, running, or solving mathematical equations or listening to music. Now, these techniques have opened up a vast vista of new understandings of the human brain. I was going to say a vast Pandora's box. It's also that as well, because the new ideas coming out contravene many of the older ideas. We have techniques now that differ from the old techniques of phrenology, for example, that used to determine a person's behaviour or gain insight into it and personality through the shape of the cranium, the shape of the head, the bumps. These techniques, of course, allow us to go far beyond this. And so there is a counterpoint now in cognitive science, which encompasses the knowledge of the brain largely, and the knowledge of behaviour. There's a counterpoint between that and philosophy, both old and new. Philosophers, in a sense, have been very, very self-satisfied with their notions of self, of identity, of mind. They've taken these things as an intuitive given, much the same as we do. They've taken things like perception as a passive thing, whereas it's absolutely not. They've taken it as a given that our brain and our mind is tuned to understand the so-called truth, the essence of the veracity of life, if you like, whereas it's not. For example, truth is more relevantly couched in terms of a process. It is not a thing, just as the universe is not a thing. It is a process. To really get at the core understandings of things is not something that the brain has necessarily evolved to do. Because the brain has evolved, like us in general, to survive, to take advantage of the obvious things and the macro things, if you like, in the world about us. To come to terms with those things, to be able to use those things to adapt to those phenomena and apply them. The process of understanding self goes a lot deeper and requires different skills, different techniques to which the brain is not necessarily tuned. Hume, the great philosopher Hume, understood this when he engaged in introspection, which is largely what philosophers have done over eons to understand themselves. He said he saw a great flux of sensations and activities and reactions and perceptions, but no self. No actual identity nothing that you could say is a contiguous identity. Other philosophers ignored Hume's assessment. But now the truth is coming home. He is one of the few philosophers that actually got down to the core of what's going on. But again, now we have cognitive science, which is throwing up enormously different ways of understanding us and understanding the brain. So there's no room for complacency anymore. There's no room for philosophers to just talk about what do we understand when we talk about a table. How do we know that the sun will come up tomorrow? Or first order predicate logic. This is far too simplistic and far too cosy. They've been jolted, as we will be jolted, out of this complacency in the future. Let's return then to understanding a little more about this perhaps illusion of identity, if not delusion, of identity and self, or what it really means to us and what it can mean. Let's go back to, first of all, reality. We've spoken about the nature of reality many times on this program.